Action research. Action research is researching the problem or the issue that we wish to investigate. The purpose of the study will always talk about what we are focusing on in our research. Our research questions always have to guide the study at which we are conducting the action research for. The participants must be those who are within the research that we are studying. When looking at the action research that I chose to focus on African American students and Hispanic students that are struggling in high school in the math content. I would like to focus on the students' abilities, but also the social economic status and also the parent involvement when it comes to African American students and Hispanic students that struggle in mathematics. When we look at the problem in my particular study, when it focuses on African American students and Hispanic students, I would like to say that African American students and Hispanic students have been underachieving in math since the late 2000s. The goal of my study is to help increase math achievement for both African American students and Hispanic students, to consider wider options for parents when it comes to education, including student careers, college choices, and much more. In order for African American students and Hispanic students to get back on track, we must look at our high school educations as a whole, especially in the grade levels of 9 through 12. We must look at the funding of programs, resources, and we also must look at the educational supports that African Americans and Hispanic students have. Considering that, according to Matthew Lynch in 2014, the Black Star Project published findings that just 10% of 8th grade Black African American males and Hispanic students were considered proficient in reading and in math at the time. In the urban area of Chicago and Detroit, the numbers were very low, as which our numbers are at an all-time low still for the state of North Carolina as well. So in my problem, I really want to investigate African American males and Hispanic students that struggle in math. Now that we have covered the problem, you really want to look at the purpose in action research. What are you doing it for? What benefits will it serve both the participants and the investigator or the researcher? You want to look at what's the whole goal of your action research. So the purpose for me is to study the indications of trying to help students succeed versus African American males students and African and Hispanic students. You want to pretty much create a successful bridging program that will help students achieve in math. But you want to make sure that your teachers and the instruction is conducive for your African American students and your Hispanic students. You want to make sure your teachers are supported in instructional practices that will help them get across the math concepts that they are wishing to teach those students that may come across as low achieving. So the purpose of the study is to basically focus on the student at hand, but also the instructional approaches, but also coming to a common good of trying to help African American students and Hispanic students achieve at higher levels in mathematics. Now that we have discovered the purpose, I want to say that in education, it's a steadily evolving cycle at which students are growing, and the unknown is approached by teachers and instruction. But also, it's kind of like the metaphoric phrase of a geese. We used to say that geese fly south. That's for warm temperatures to evolve a little bit more. But in researching and finding, geese fly south for open land, open water. Just like African American students and Hispanic students, they seek knowledge, but they seek it in their ways of learning. So I feel that in the educational world, as we're evolving as teachers and as educators, if we involve ourselves more so in the makeup of African American and Hispanic social economics, our diversity standards, I feel that we can reach those students in a greater massive force than what we are seeing in the record low numbers of achievement for most African American students and Hispanic students. But which this now leads us to the research questions. And these research questions focus on what are ways to improve math instruction for African American students and Hispanic students. What barriers would teachers face in trying to increase student proficiency in math at the high school level? And the last question that I have is what community supports or what district supports or what are ways that we can partner with families and communities to be able to help facilitate education as it continues, not only at school but as at home, to make the students more successful as opposed to going to college, getting entry-level jobs, or just understanding a stronger aspect of the mathematics and the components of understanding of the math language. Now that we focused on the research questions, now we're going to change gears and focus on the participants. In this study, my participants will be mostly incoming ninth graders who basically just finished middle school that are transitioning into high school. And of course, it will be African American students and Hispanic students. And a part of the other parts of the participants would be math teachers who teach math curriculum. And also probably it would also involve math coaches, math specialists, and also special education teachers, because I know their numbers are at an all-time high when it comes to service delivery for African American students and Hispanic students. And I would probably look at some cross-curricular teachers, but mostly the focus is, like I stated before, ninth grade students who just have entered into high school, ninth grade math curriculum teachers who are teaching the math content, math coaches and instructional support that may be working with the ninth grade team, and also the special education teacher who also may foster some relationships with the ninth grade students, and also probably looking at some students that may have failed the ninth grade, but mostly it's just the focus is on ninth grade students who have just entered ninth grade and they are of African American and Hispanic descent, and just trying to look at bridging the gap to make them successful. In order, I guess, for me to kind of wrap it all up, the data will be preliminary assessments that students come in with at the 8th grade level. We'll also be using pre and post teacher test diagnostics that math teachers have collected. And we'll also be looking at the state assessment to see where our students may be weak on. And we'll probably be also using a technology software program called iReady to help remediate some skills. And we'll be looking at attendance, grade reports, progress reports, and the data collection will be through student work samples, teacher data submissions, teacher interviews, PLCs, through parent interaction, and all this information will be shared through professional development, math integration programs, but mostly it will be the support of the parent, just making sure that the parent is being successful at home with the student. The goal is to help the student learn math, but also transition the math learning at home and allow the parents to feel comfortable too, as well as helping and supporting their child as well. I think ongoing action research is probably needed for my area of study, but I believe that I'm on the right start. So as I conclude, my goal is to get students to model and do what my last piece of my video is in regards to math.
Let's say they roll and they get a 4 and a 2. As you see, these markers here are numbered. 4 plus 2 equals 6. So you want to be able to remove your 6, but before you can remove it, you have to answer your card.
Question.
If you find that your problem is too hard for you, your person can skip and you can answer another one.
Okay.
That means you will have to roll all over again. Some of them are filling the blank. Your goal is to remove all your markers, or at least more than they remove, by the end of a minute and 30 seconds, and you get something at the end if you want. Alright? Give me a second, guys. Alright, you ready? Yep. And go.
22. 5, 6. Okay. 44.
A squared.
Oh, it's a blank second.
Alright, hold on.